You do not panic sell because the market drops. You panic sell because you have never truly accepted what trading is. That might sound like an exaggeration. It is not. Every trader who has ever slammed the sell button in a moment of fear, every single one did it for the same reason. Not because the chart looked bad, not because the news was unexpected. They did it because in that moment they believed this one trade had the power to ruin them. And that belief, not the market, is what pulls the trigger. I am Mark Douglas, and I have spent my career working with traders who could analyze a chart better than anyone in the room and still could not hold a position through a 2% drawdown. The gap between what they knew and what they did was not a knowledge gap. It was a belief gap. And closing that gap is what makes panic selling not unlikely, not reduced, but genuinely impossible. The real tragedy is that most traders never even see the belief that is destroying them. They think the problem is the market. They think the problem is their strategy. They never stop to examine what is happening inside their own mind in the moments before they break. That is why I believe so strongly in structured self-observation, something like the Speculator's Journal, which gives traders a way to actually see their emotional patterns laid out in front of them instead of just guessing. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. But let me explain exactly what I mean by a belief gap, because this is where everything changes. Let me describe your trading day, and you tell me if this sounds familiar. You do your analysis, you find your setup, you calculate your risk, you enter the trade, and for the first few minutes, you feel fine, maybe even confident. Then the trade moves against you. Not by much, maybe half your stop distance. And something shifts, your chest tightens, your focus narrows, you start watching every tick. You are no longer analyzing, you are reacting. Every red candle feels like a verdict. Every bounce gives you a moment of relief followed by more dread. And then it happens. The trade hits a level that is still within your original stop loss, still within the risk you supposedly accepted, and you sell. You close the position, not because your system told you to, because your body told you to, because the discomfort became unbearable, and then because the universe has a cruel sense of humor, the trade reverses. It goes exactly where you thought it would, without you. You know this feeling. You have lived it. Maybe yesterday, maybe this morning. Here is what you need to understand. That moment where your body overrides your brain is not a failure of discipline. It is not weakness. It is your survival instinct doing exactly what it evolved to do, removing you from perceived danger as fast as possible. Mark Douglas observed this pattern in thousands of traders across decades of coaching, and he identified the root cause with absolute clarity. The problem is not that you feel fear. The problem is that your brain cannot distinguish between losing money and being in physical danger. To your nervous system, a losing trade triggers the same alarm bells as a predator in the tall grass. And when that alarm fires, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, strategic part of your brain, goes offline. You are no longer trading, you are surviving. And you cannot think your way out of survival mode. You cannot logic your way past it. You have to dissolve the belief that activates it in the first place. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, I do accept the risk. I know I could lose. But you are wrong, and the proof is in your behavior. If you had truly accepted the risk before entering the trade, the drawdown would not have triggered panic. You would have watched the trade move against you and felt nothing more than mild interest. The fact that you felt terror means you accepted the risk intellectually but not emotionally. There is a vast difference between those two things. So here is the lie you have been told your entire trading career. You have been told that the key to handling losses is emotional control, that you need to manage your feelings, stay calm, be disciplined. Breathe through it. That advice is not just unhelpful, it is backwards. You do not need to control your emotions. You need to change the belief that creates them. Let me explain. When you believe that each trade carries the weight of your financial future, when you believe this trade matters, then fear is the only rational emotional response. Your emotions are not broken. They are responding perfectly to what you believe. The problem is that what you believe is wrong. Mark Douglas built his entire philosophy around this single insight. Trading is a probability game. No single trade determines your outcome. No single loss defines your competence. No single win confirms your skill. Every trade is one iteration in a series of hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. And the outcome of any single iteration is statistically irrelevant to the long-term result. This is not a clever reframe. This is the mathematical reality of trading. A system with a 60% win rate will lose 4 times in a row on a regular basis. It will lose 6 times in a row occasionally. And it will still make money over 1,000 trades. But only if you take all 1,000 trades. Only if you do not panic, sell on trade number 4 of a losing streak, because your body decided that 4 losses in a row means the system is broken. The mindset shift that makes panic selling impossible is this: you stop believing that any individual trade matters. Not that it does not matter at all, but that its outcome tells you nothing, absolutely nothing, about what will happen next or whether your approach works. The only thing that matters is the aggregate, the series. The long run, when you truly internalize this, not as a concept you can explain, but as a belief you feel in your bones, something remarkable happens. The emotional charge drains out of every individual trade. The drawdown is no longer a threat. The stop loss is no longer a verdict. It is just data. One data point in a very long experiment. And panic selling becomes not just unlikely, but genuinely impossible, because there's nothing to panic about. But I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually change a belief? How do I go from understanding this concept to feeling it? That is exactly what I am going to show you. Let me talk about the first and most important ritual, pre-acceptance. This is non-negotiable. Before you enter any trade, you must define exactly what you are willing to lose in dollars, not percentages, and you must sit with that number until it means nothing to you. Not until you understand it intellectually. Until it creates zero emotional response in your body. Here is why this works. Your brain processes risk in advance very differently than risk in real time. When you think about a hypothetical $50 loss while you are calm and analytical, your prefrontal cortex stays engaged. You can reason about it. You can evaluate it. But when that same $50 loss is happening live, your amygdala hijacks the process and throws you into fight or flight. Pre-acceptance is the practice of resolving the emotional impact of the loss before it occurs, so that when it happens in real time, your nervous system has already processed it. It is already done. There is nothing new to react to. I know what you are thinking. You think you already do this. You think, I set my stop loss. I know my risk. But setting a stop loss is a mechanical act. Pre-acceptance is an emotional one. They are not the same thing. Let me give you exactly how this works. Before you enter a trade, you write down 3 things. First, your entry price. Second, your stop loss price. Third, the exact dollar amount you will lose if your stop is hit. Then you read that third number out loud. I am willing to lose $50 on this trade. And you check your body. Do you feel anything? Tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach? A voice in your head saying, but maybe I should use a tighter stop? If you feel anything, you are not ready to take the trade. Either reduce your position size until the dollar amount triggers no emotional response, or do not take the trade at all. Here is a worked example. You find a setup on your USD. Your entry is 1.085. Your stop is 1.082. That is a 30 pip stop. On your current position size, that is $75. You say out loud, I am willing to lose $75 on this trade. And you feel a slight tightening, that is your signal. You reduce your size until the loss is $50. You say it again. I am willing to lose $50. Nothing. No tension, no resistance. Now you enter the trade. This is why pre-acceptance matters. Because the mindset shift from each trade matters to each trade is one of thousands starts here. If you cannot accept the loss before it happens, you have not accepted the probabilities. And if you have not accepted the probabilities, you will panic. Let me talk about the second ritual. The probability reminder. This is non-negotiable. Before every single trade, you say out loud or in writing 1 sentence. I do not know what will happen on this trade, and I do not need to know. That sentence sounds simple, almost trivial. It is not. Here's the psychology behind it. Your brain is a prediction machine. It is wired to predict outcomes. And when it makes a prediction, this trade will work, this setup always works at this level, it creates an expectation. And when reality violates that expectation, it triggers a threat response. The bigger the expectation, the bigger the threat response. The probability reminder is a deliberate interruption of your brain's prediction engine. You are telling your nervous system explicitly that you have no expectation, And without an expectation, there is nothing for reality to violate. The emotional sting of a losing trade drops to almost zero. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, if I tell myself I do not know what will happen, why would I even take the trade? And this is the paradox that most traders never resolve. You take the trade because your system has an edge over hundreds of trades. You have no idea what will happen on this trade. Both of those things are true at the same time. The edge exists in the aggregate, not in the instance. You are not betting on this trade. You are betting on the next 500 trades. This trade is just one of them. A casino does not know whether the next spin of the roulette wheel will land on red or black, and they do not care. Because over 10,000 spins, the math is inevitable. You need to think the same way. Not about this trade. About the next 1,000, I do not know what will happen on this trade, and I do not need to know. Say it before every entry. Write it in your journal. Make it the screensaver on your phone. This one sentence, repeated enough, will rewire how your brain processes uncertainty. And uncertainty is the only thing the market guarantees. Let me talk about the third ritual, detachment from the ticker. This is non-negotiable. Once your trade is entered, your stop loss is set, and your target is defined, you close the chart. You step away. You do not watch. Here is why. Every second you spend watching your open trade is a second your brain spends generating predictions, expectations, and emotional responses. The price ticks down fear. It ticks up hope. It stalls anxiety. You are subjecting your nervous system to a non-stop stream of micro-threats, each one draining your capacity for rational thought. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, but what if something happens? What if there is news? What if my stop does not get filled? And I can tell you from decades of observation that the damage done by watching every tick vastly outweighs any theoretical benefit from monitoring. Your stop loss is your monitoring. Your system is your monitoring. You do not need to add your emotional nervous system to the process. Think of a surgeon. A surgeon does not perform an operation while watching their own heart rate monitor. They trust their training, their preparation, and their plan. They execute. They do not second-guess every incision while the scalpel is in their hand. You need to trade the same way. Set an alert at your stop and at your target. Close the chart. Go for a walk. Read a book. Do anything except watch the numbers move. The trade is already placed. The risk is already defined. There is nothing left for you to do. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner panic selling becomes a memory, not a threat. Let me talk about the fourth ritual, and this one might be the most important of all. The post-trade emotional audit. This is non-negotiable. After every trade, win or lose, you answer 5 specific questions, not about the trade itself, about you. Question 1, did I follow my rules? Yes or no? Question 2, what was I feeling when I entered? Question 3, what was I feeling during the trade? Question 4, did I consider closing early, moving my stop, or adding to my position outside of my plan? Question 5, if this exact setup appeared tomorrow, would I take it again the same way? Here is the psychology. Most traders journal their P&L. They track their wins and losses. And that is almost useless for growth, because a win that came from breaking your rules teaches you nothing good. And a loss that came from perfect execution is not a failure. The post-trade emotional audit shifts your focus from outcomes to process. It forces you to confront not what the market did, but what you did. And over time, patterns emerge. You start to see that you panic on trades entered during high volatility sessions, or that you hold losers longer when you are already having a bad week, or that you feel calm on setups you have taken 100 times and anxious on ones you are improvising. This is where something like the Speculator's Journal becomes genuinely valuable. It is designed to surface exactly these emotional patterns, the ones you would never see just tracking wins and losses. A way to actually observe your own psychology the way Mark Douglas always insisted traders needed to, except now the data does some of the heavy lifting for you. Link is in the description. But the point is this, without a structured practice of self-observation, the mindset shift I am describing remains theoretical. You will understand it, you will not live it. Let me give you a worked example. You take a short on the S&P, it loses. You pull out your journal and write, loss $42. Did I follow my rules? Yes. What was I feeling when I entered? Confident, clean setup. What was I feeling during the trade? Calm for the first 10 minutes, then anxious when it bounced off support. Did I consider closing early? Yes. At minute 12, I wanted to close. I did not. Would I take it again? Absolutely. That is a perfect trade. It lost money, and it is still a perfect trade, because the only thing that matters is whether you executed your process. The money is a byproduct of doing the right thing over hundreds of iterations. If you followed your rules and lost, you succeeded. If you broke your rules and won, you failed. This is the inversion most traders never make, and it is the inversion that kills panic selling at its root. Because when your definition of success shifts from make money on this trade to execute my process on this trade, the emotional stakes of any individual outcome drop to zero. There is nothing to panic about. You either followed your rules or you did not. The market's opinion of your trade is irrelevant. So let me bring this together. The mindset shift that makes panic selling feel impossible is not a trick. It is not a technique you apply in the moment. It is a transformation of the beliefs you carry into every trade. You stop believing that individual trades define you. You start believing that only the series matters. You stop reacting to what the market is doing right now. You start executing based on what you decided before the trade began. You stop measuring success by dollars. You start measuring it by process. And the 4 rituals I have given you, pre-acceptance, the probability reminder, detaching from the ticker, and the post-trade emotional audit, these are not tips. They are the infrastructure of that belief change. You do them every day, every trade, without exception. You do them when you feel like it, and you do them when you do not. Because this is not about willpower. This is about becoming the kind of trader who does not panic, not because they are brave, but because they have nothing to panic about. Here is what I want you to do. For the next 6 months, commit to these 4 practices on every single trade. Not most trades, every trade. 1. Pre-accept your loss in dollars. Say it out loud. Feel nothing before you enter. 2. Remind yourself, I do not know what will happen on this trade, and I do not need to know. 3. Set your stops and targets. Close the chart. Walk away. 4. After every trade, answer the 5 questions. Track your emotions, not just your P&L. If you do this for 6 months genuinely, without exception, you will not recognize yourself as a trader. Not because you will be making more money, although you probably will, but because the fear will be gone. The panic will be gone. The frantic, desperate energy that used to drive every decision will have been replaced by something much quieter, much steadier, and much more powerful. Boredom. When trading feels boring, you are doing it right. Most traders never get there. They spend their entire careers chasing the feeling of a big win, running from the feeling of a loss, and wondering why they cannot find consistency. The answer is that consistency is not exciting, it is not dramatic, it is the same thing done the same way every single day, regardless of outcomes. That is what mastery looks like. I want to return to where we started. You do not panic sell because the market drops. You panic sell because you believe this trade matters more than it does. Change that belief and the panic dissolves. Not through force, through understanding. Mark Douglas dedicated his life to teaching traders that the battle is never with the market. It is always with yourself. And the tools he described, the probabilistic mindset, the acceptance of uncertainty, the focus on process over outcome, these are not abstract ideals. They are daily practices. They are rituals you build into the structure of every trading day until they become so automatic that panic has no foothold, no entry point, no chance. Do the work, not because it is easy, because it is the only thing that has ever worked.